like to bring the Architectural Board of Review meeting of Monday, July 27th to order. First item on the agenda in general business is public comment. Any member of the public may address the ABR for up to 2 minutes for an item that's not on the agenda. Seeing none, I will close the portion of the general business and go to item B, approval of the minutes of the ABR meeting of July 13th. Do I have a maker of that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Made by Paul, second by Clay. Any comments to the minutes prior to item 1? Item 1. Item 2. Item 3. Item 4.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I had an additional comment for item 4. On this project, which was the Vaughn's project, we gave the project preliminary approval and told the project to return to final on consent. But I'm wondering if it would be advantageous to have staff contact the applicant and ask them to bring by the architectural detailing for an in-progress review instead of having them do 100% of finished working drawings expecting to get final at that meeting. And then it puts more pressure on the people that are doing the consent. And that if we kind of, as a courtesy, ask them to bring an in-progress review, it might alleviate some headaches that could materialize.
Well, that's up to the board at this point now, because, I mean, you're formalizing these minutes if you want.
It doesn't have anything to do with the minutes, really. He's just making a statement regarding this item.
But you want it to come back to the full board for an in-progress?
No.
No, I didn't say
Oh,
full
not full
board.
board. Okay.
Have it go to the consent calendar, which is what the motion was. But if staff was to call them and just sort of say, oh, by the way, we offer an in-progress review at no additional expense. Why don't you bring over your architectural sheets, the details, so that when the person's reviewing it, if he has a couple of hiccups, it's not going to slow.
To consent.
To consent.
In progress to consent.
It's not going to slow his submittal to the building department.
Yeah.
Generally, when we schedule something on the agenda for well, consent doesn't have the in-progress activity. It's just referred from full board to consent. But if we're at, for instance, at the full board level for in-progress, we generally don't let them take action.
It's not going to come back to full
Yeah.
board, so.
So there's not that, it won't be scheduled for in-progress on the consent level because there's not that title for the consent agenda,
My
but they can
point-
still come to consent.
It's
and
more
like it.
to help the out-of-town architect work with the board, and it's for the consent people so that they have a little bit more time to work with them, and then instead of feeling the pressure of having to approve it right then and there and making changes right then and there.
Can I make a suggestion? That staff just call the applicant and tell them that to be prepared that not everybody receives final approval on the first time that they go for final approval on consent.
That's fine.
Is that all right?
I have been in discussion with them actually today via email, and they are prepared to submit the final approval sets this week sometime for upcoming review on consent. And I did advise them already that, you know, they had to be complete with all the details and have the final approval submittal checklist, and that they don't
Okay.
always get final approval at the first.
Okay, that's fine.
Does anybody have any comments on the minutes to item number 4? I had one on item 3 of the motion. The board prefers option 1, detailing of the plaster columns with the integration of the stone and the use of stone planters. Anything else on item 4? Item 5? Item 6?
Madam Chair,
Yes. Keith.
for item 6, under architecture, item 4, it says provide all hidden connections. I believe that was
The trellis?
at trellis structures.
Yeah, at the trellis structure. At trellis structures.
And then number 6, just a minor point on item 6, just the, I believe it's glue lamb, not land.
Yeah, LAM, Kathy. I had one on architecture for building 1, item 1. It said, regarding detail 10 and 5, sheet A501, revise the 3rd story metal finish pilaster. I don't remember what that was exactly. The metal finish pilaster. Does that make sense to anybody? Yeah,
Just the window mullion spacing, wasn't it?
that's what I thought. So it's revised the third story metal finish to the windows to have all equal dimensions. The pilaster is metal finish pilaster. I don't know. Is that clear? That's all right. If we can leave pilaster, I guess. Is that clear to everybody else? All right, just leave it, Kathy. And that's all I have. So we have a maker and a second. We have all those in favor. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. On to the consent calendar.
We have a motion.
Yeah, can we have a motion for July 20th? Clay, second by Paul.
I'll read it. Consent agenda for Monday, July 20th. Item A, 819 North South Sepulveda Street, continued indefinitely to the consent calendar. With the following comments. Item B, 1309 Blanchard Street, received final approval with conditions. Items on consent were reviewed by Clay Arell and Carol Gross.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And then can I have a maker of the motion for the July 22nd? Clay? 27th, today. Okay, Clay made the motion. Second? Who? Keith?
Consent calendar for today, Monday, July 27th. Item A, 718 East Mason Street, approved as submitted of review after final. Item B, 226 West Eliguera Street, final approval as noted. Item C, 115 East Valerio Street, continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer, and the design review waiver was granted for the private outdoor living space to be located in the front yard without a fence. Items were reviewed by Clay Arell and Carol Gross.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals.
I have a few announcements.
Okay.
As we know, Christopher Manson-Hing will not be here today. Second announcement, due to the appeal of the staff hearing officer decision for 617 Bradbury Avenue, which is item 5 on today's agenda, that item will be postponed indefinitely from today's agenda, so item 4 will be our last item of the day.
I don't need to make that announcement.
Item 3, we need to confirm an ABR member's attendance for the City Council hearing scheduled for Tuesday, August 4th, for the appeal of the Planning Commission approval of 436 Corona Del Mar. Do we have any volunteers?
I'm absent that day.
Tuesday, August 4th. Okay, thank you, Clay. Okay, another announcement, as with Jim Blakely's recent resignation, he was also listed as the ABR liaison for the VAP subcommittee, Visual Arts and Public Places, and Paul Zink was at the time listed as the alternate liaison, and he has expressed interest in becoming the ABR liaison, taking over Jim's position, and Carol Gross has expressed interest in becoming the new alternate for that subcommittee. Just want to make that announcement. Carol's not here, but Paul, that was your interest in continuing as the liaison? Very good, thank you. Another announcement, 803 North Milpas. That project had a concept review at ABR on May 4th. And that project is scheduled for a tentative planning commission hearing on August 20th. And this project will have story polls. I don't know the dates yet. We'll have to confirm that with the case planner, Pete Lawson. And one final announcement, very busy announcements day. I emailed the board the photos and a memo from city staff regarding catch basin storms drains. It was a screen project for the storm drains, and we just wanted to give you the heads up that those were projects going on throughout citywide, and the catch basins. It was a discussion item at HLC at the last HLC agenda, and it's not coming to the full board at ABR as a project because it doesn't require a building permit, but just a heads up that those catch basins are being located in various locations around town. So if you have any questions, I think you had the photos and the memo and the email I sent this morning.
Thanks, Michelle. Any more announcements from anybody?
I just want to reiterate that I won't be at the next meeting on the 20th, I think it is. No, wait, August. Whenever the next one is.
The next meeting would be
The 9th or 10th. Yeah.
10th.
Okay.
And you know I'm not there. I'm not here at that meeting.
I'm not.
Okay. And yeah, you're working on that, right? I have to briefly walk out of the room for about 10 minutes at 3:30. So, Paul, would you like to step in? Any more announcements? Subcommittee reports? None? All right. So we're on to the first agenda item on today's meeting, and that would be item 1. It would be 128 Anacapa Street. Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Is that a revised set, or is that the same as
Same.
Okay. Your name for the record,
Joe Ewing, architect.
Okay, Joe. Let's see. I have minutes from the last meeting. Would you like me to read those before you start? Or do you want to address those as you go in your presentation?
As we go, it would be fine.
All right. Let me see how many items we have. Actually, I think it might be a good idea if I just skim through these really
Okay,
quickly so the
that's
board remembers what happened last time. We've seen this a couple of times. So the motion stated, item number 1, the mass, bulk, and scale of the project is still aggressive. Study ways to substantially reduce the project, including reducing the plate heights. The roof decks, the elevator, and stair tower are exacerbating the overall height of the building. Restudy ways to reduce the overall height. Number 3, show on the plans the 45-foot maximum height on the sections and elevations. 4, verify with building and safety the 0 lot line requirements of the building code, which may significantly impact how the windows are addressed. Number 5, the board will continue to look forward to further refinement of the architectural styling and detailing. And 1 landscape comment of reducing the width of the curb cut to minimize hardscape along Anacapa Street. Okay, Joe, go ahead.
Okay. I'll just kind of just jump around.
Yes?
On the height of the building, we lowered practically all the plate heights and the elevator height. I'm getting the picture there. And I can go to the section, or I can. That'd be probably
That's
the best
probably
way
the
to do
best
it.
way.
Yeah. This is one of the.
And can you also outline what they were before to,
Yeah,
And
I
how
can
much you
get
reduced them
really
by?
close.
Okay.
We were close to 45 feet before,
okay,
and I have.
Actually, I think we're above 45.
Yeah, we're right because we measured from the didn't measure to the ground. I think that's what it was.
you were above 45 before.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now that's 40 foot two at this end, and we're 40 foot forward at that end. This is the 2 side elevations. This is the back unit, this is the front unit, this is Anacapa Street.
But not measured from the same spot?
Yeah, this is...
Oh, from grade at one street and grade to the next street?
Right.
All right.
And
And you have a 10-foot plate height on the first floor, a 10... This is floor to floor?
That's floor to floor.
And 10 floor to floor second, and
Right.
9 floor to floor third?
Right,
With an 8-foot elevator tower?
right.
And what
And
did you have
2 8s,
before on
2
these?
8s. And that's 40-foot too.
Right. And what were these numbers before? Just so everybody has an idea.
I think they were taller before. I know these were 10. I think this was 9.
Yeah, I think the first floor was something like 12 feet.
Yeah, it was much
It would
taller.
help to know that because
Yeah.
we did ask.
We should
For-
have, we kind of thought that there'd be an old set of...
Yeah, there will be.
plans
So
and-
move on, Joe, and then we'll have staff look for
Okay.
the old plans.
Almost identical on the other, that's the back of the building, 40-foot 4, and that's the tallest portion of the building right there. And then on the other side, it was the same. You know, they were both the same. And then we go through the sections. You can really see where the numbers are. For instance, right here we had 39.2. That part right there.
I didn't see a 39.2 on your other elevation.
I
at the
think
top.
I did from here. I didn't go to the grade. I think that was later. 10, 10, 9, and 8. Then I had a 2, 8. I think it's this.
40-foot floor to finished floor.
Yeah, that's the back unit. 39.2 is the front unit. Oh, this is the only place I could do it, on the front unit. Because I could clearly show exactly where that building was and exactly where this building was in relation to the grade. The front elevation didn't, it was just a pretty drawing.
Okay. let's
This
keep
really
moving.
tells where it is. In other words, it's 5 feet lower than it used to be. It lowered the whole thing 5 feet. Or more.
Did you show the maximum 45-foot height limit on your...
I didn't show it on there, but I thought that would probably be, make it all happen.
Okay. Go ahead.
And let's see, what was some of the other comments?
One of the recommendations also from the board was that we had an element in the A building, laundry room.
Oh, yes. In this area
There
right
was a
here,
suggestion that
on the
we
second floor,
Lose that, so we got rid of that.
we connected the two buildings right here with a connection between this building and this building, a big laundry room and a powder room. We took it out and put it on another level. So that really opened this area. This is all open all the way through. So both units are separated totally. A lot more green
But you
space.
can't really tell this from the streets. You can't really
Not
see
in the
that.
street.
From the street, well,
No.
maybe from here, but
Yeah.
whoever made the suggestion, I forget who, just thought it was really closed up, and we kind of agreed with them that, so that's why we got rid of it.
All right. Is that it, Joe?
That's it.
Do you want to, did you make any further refinements to, aside from lowering the plate height, which we're still looking for the old plans, did you make, let's look at that.
Good. Oh, this is really good. You see this right here? Well, since we lowered the building, we changed the pitch of this roof in the other direction so it looks more Spanish, because this was not very Spanish. And we had this, they didn't like the design of that balcony, and so we pushed everything back, especially we called out back here. There was a balcony showing that showed up on the plan. It was forward, and we pushed it way back on the roof plan.
All right. Let's take a look at section.
Should be the,
It doesn't
yeah.
have your plate to plate dimensions.
That's in grade.
That's
yeah, this
in
is the back of
grade.
the building, this is the front of the building. The
So-
front elevation would show it.
Okay, so this elevation, you had as
Yeah.
from...
This is the back of the building here?
You had 39 feet before.
Yeah. And then plus 7.6. I didn't add them up
Oh, okay.
during this. 47. 46.
So
Then I did the same thing here. They just 15
So your plate
added up.
on the lowest,
Yeah.
on the lower level went from
Okay. So yeah, 40
floor to
foot.
floor went from
Maybe
11 to 10, so reduced by 1 foot on the lowest level. On the middle level, you reduced it by 1 foot,
10 feet here.
10 feet, 11, 9.
That's 2 feet.
1 foot 9, and then this.
And here, that was a 9 foot.
So your total overall before was what? Did you even have that?
Yeah,
40 feet.
40 feet, but that's not to here.
Right, so you had,
So I took this off.
this is looking southwest.
Yeah.
Okay, where's the southwest elevation on the new plans?
Southwest. Here's the southeast. Here's the back. And here's the southwest. Okay. At this end, we had 40 foot 2. Then we have
Looking
40 feet,
southwest.
but that's to the
Oh,
finished
this is looking
floor,
southwest.
Yeah.
I'm having a really hard
Oh,
time
that's a section.
understanding
Yeah,
this.
yeah, this is a section here.
You have 6 more minutes, and then you get to walk away.
I'm looking upside down here.
Is it just me? Does everybody else understand that reduction in the plate heights completely?
Close enough.
Yeah,
That they were somewhat reduced? Okay, let's move on to,
one more over. Or 2
let's
more over, I think.
let's look at the individual elevations and look at how you have refined the architectural style and detailing.
This would be
Actually,
at the southwest.
that's the
That's the front of the building.
southwest elevation. That's the northwest.
Here we go. This is the northwest.
And this is the old plan,
This is the old plan.
and here's the new plan.
36,
41.6.
41.6. And that's not even to the highest point. We took the highest point and dropped it down. And that is, without my scale, yeah,
It's not a very long
right
scale.
here.
This is what you were supposed to do.
Yeah. You just measure from there to there. And get it to you.
Okay.
It's
4 feet.
yeah.
So
Over,
36, 41.6, 45.6.
yeah,
And you took
40
about
foot 2.
5 feet
Almost 5 feet off.
something. All right, so we can put that away. Let's see. Did you verify with the Building and Safety Division that the requirements for the zero lot line and how they might impact your windows?
Yeah, we did that, and we have 3-hour windows that show us. It's not on this side. It is on the other side where the
Do
view.
you wanna
want
show us?
something in writing from them?
No, just show
okay,
us which
yeah,
windows
yeah.
those are.
It's just a couple on the
Dining room,
Yeah, it's right on the. This is the second level here. Those 3 right there, and those 3 right there. And there's
So let's see them on the elevation and see what they look like.
3-hour fixed.
yeah. Oh yeah, I do a lot of assisted living projects with that, where you have to have that, and this is one of those cases. There's the windows right there. Those 3, and those 3, and that one. These are set 5 feet back, so you don't have to have a rating.
So you verified what the requirements were, and then you just know they have to be 3R. Okay.
Oh, ever since 1954.
Did you reduce the curb cut to minimize the hardscape and increase the
Yes, we
landscaping?
did.
Do you want to show us
Considerably. Still have enough room to get a car out. Oh, these are the old plans.
No,
it's in the one.
those are the new plans.
Oh,
It's just like that.
right here. Here's the curb. It was like almost from there to there, and I narrowed it down.
The item on the motion said to minimize hardscape. So
Yeah. here's the
minimizing the curb
exist-
cut is part of it, but,
Okay, here's the existing sidewalk. We didn't change that.
right.
This is hard, this is planning, that's planning, and this is all, of course, planning.
So where did you where did you maximize your landscaping opportunities?
I had, this right here was like this wide, all paved, and then I had an entry much closer. This is a little bit more space than I had here, and I had an entry right here, which increased that. So I considerably added a lot of green space. This is a pretty wide sidewalk, by the way. And they have trees on this green area. Now, we almost talked about putting trees in here, but this is all yucca. Right
Okay.
here. But we did add green space by reducing this driveway.
Okay.
I think we had,
Do you want to just really quickly run through
okay,
the individual elevations and how you've continued to refine
the elevations.
Because of the first comment on the motion, Joe said a statement about the mass bulk and scale is aggressive, and then
Yeah.
the item that states looking forward to further refinement of the detailing and the style. So
We had a solid handrail in front that went from here to there. We made it open. We opened it up so it was all open all the way across. Made the building look a lot lower. And remember, this is a very narrow street, so you'll be looking up at the building all the time. So we had a roof that went like this. Where you see that roof, we made it a gable out of it and put the fireplace, which was already here, and reduced this in height. In addition to that, this balcony right here is way beyond. It was a lot further, right next to this almost. So we pushed that way back. So you can't see this, can't see that. You can't see that roof. You can't see this roof when you're in the street, unless you get on top of the building across the way, which is a warehouse.
okay. Where's the
And
other
here's the
elevations?
existing tree. Here's the building next door to us beyond,
Okay.
brand new. In fact, I think it's still under construction.
Do you want to go through all 4 elevations really
Sure.
quickly?
Yeah, good. Here's the building next door. You won't be able to see that part of the building at all beyond that. And then there's a roof deck over here too on that building. And on the back end,
Northwest elevation. Oh, yeah. Okay.
on the back end, here's the building right next door. 0 lot line. Building next door, 0 lot line. That's the Santa Barbara Winery warehouse, storage warehouse, or one of them.
And how far is this cantilevering out over?
3 feet.
3 feet.
We could
All
go
right.
4, but we said, well, we've got enough.
All right.
Save a lever. Also, I want to add to this that we're extremely green on this project. There's
All
a
right.
new block that we're going to be using that's totally green on the exterior walls, which is also a 4-hour rated wall, and we only need 3.
Can you explain? I remember before one of the comments was the property owner at
That's
this
the building
property was
next-
here, and he was
next
concerned
door.
about losing his
Here's
son.
here's the wall line. It goes back. Here's the 3 feet right there.
Can you explain how you changed this elevation that would allow more light to come into
It was similar, but everything was taller. Very
Okay.
similar to this,
Okay.
just taller. I lowered this, we lowered that, and pushed that back, pushed that back, pushed this way back a lot more. It was same face, but we
You mean
had
this,
less
not
of an
this?
opening here. Yeah,
Because this is on the property line.
that's this wall right here
Is on the property line.
is on the property line.
But you pushed that back, you're
Push
saying.
this all back to have an area that you can see the ocean from here, and you can see the ocean from this building,
Okay.
even from these living room windows.
All right.
And we made this deck smaller here off the master bedroom. Trying to open this up so we can get some sunlight. Even doing this is car parking right here. And so we opened it up here and open here. And get some breeze also and more sunlight. South sun.
Okay. All right. So we have one public speaker, Kellum DeForest. Kellum, would you like to, where is he?
You come right here.
Come up.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kellum DeForest. I presume you've already decided how this fits into the neighborhood. As you know, it's very close to El Pueblo Viejo. And also I'm concerned about the 40-foot building height initiative, which might get passed, and where does that put this structure? But mainly, another concern is the roof terrace. This essentially is adding a fourth floor because with umbrellas and things, it's going to stick up and become a fourth floor. And I don't think that. And I don't think it'll be. But so I think that space should be used for solar panels because it is very difficult to use unscreened outdoor space so close to the beach. The wind comes up and it becomes untenable. Thank you.
Thank you. Here we have another speaker?
Yes, if I
Just
may.
hand me the card. Is it filled out?
Everything except the item number. I don't
Oh, we'll take care of that.
know what.
Okay. Have yourself a seat when Kellum's done.
Yeah, my name is Joseph Jarrett. I live at 127 Gray Avenue. That's the property immediately behind it.
Let me go to that one. Okay.
And I spoke at the last presentation of this project and had suggested that some consideration be given to the sun studies and canyonization of this property. This large building next door that has been built, I was out of country and didn't scrutinize that to its full extent and didn't realize how much impact it did have on me, which is why I'm now concerned about what's going on here. These guys did reduce the height of this greatly, which is a great thing to do. I have two areas of concern I'd like to ask. And one of them is that there is an area of, is it 1.7 or something from this property line to my property line? Do you know how big that void is behind the property?
No, not really.
Okay. Do you show your property line is that 100 feet or 110 feet, or can you read that number there?
110 or 11. But what's the question?
Okay. My question is that there's a void here. I would like to know that where this property line is on their property in terms of how close it will ultimately be to my built structure. My built structure is 10-foot setback from property line. There's actually a void. There was a 5-foot something void in there that they have captured some of that. I'm questioning what's remaining and if they will then honor their 10-foot setback from their property line.
May I answer that?
Sure.
It's 10 feet from here to the property line. It's 10 feet from here to the building. That's the building next door.
Okay.
That's the warehouse, the Santa Barbara warehouse.
Okay.
And then you're doing a 3-foot cantilever, which
Then
means
3-foot
the second
cantilever,
floor is
yeah.
7 feet from the
Which
property line.
we could have gone 4, but we said no, we go 3. Yeah.
Okay. In truth, there was a piece of property between these properties that had not been claimed. When your property changed hands when you bought it, the seller captured 3.5 feet additional property from that, what I call a no man's land, that left an additional 1.75 feet of property between what is now yours and between what is now mine. Did you know that?
Let's not worry about that. We're here about the
Okay, so I am here to, so my question is, to what property line are they building to? I don't think they have 110 feet of property line.
Okay, we'll ask the question and look into that.
Okay.
Okay.
Additionally, I'd like to know if it's appropriate to request a sun study to see exactly how this is going to affect my property.
Okay, we'll look into that. Anything else?
That's it. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Are there any other speakers? I'm sorry. Are there any other speakers? If not, oops.
We have
Go
a
to
letter
staff.
of opposition from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay. Are there any other staff comments? Okay. One quick question for you folks before we go to the board members. Do you have a survey of the property?
Yes.
Okay. Is it part of what the drawings submitted or a previous submittal?
It may be with that the other original set. I don't know if I brought it in
I don't
this.
know if it's on the truck or what, but
We'll look into that because that's how we'll look into the question of where you're 110 feet or
On the
107.
first floor, it's 103 feet. This came from the survey.
Okay.
103.33 feet by, it's 50 feet.
Well, we'll look into
Yeah, the area is 50 feet.
50 feet.
It's
Okay. 103 by 110. Or, by 50.
50.
Thank you. Now, questions from board members? Yes, Keith. You weren't fast enough on the mic. I'm sorry.
Explain to me again how you're getting windows right on the property line. And I'm looking at table 704 from the current building code, and it indicates maximum area of exterior wall openings, and it has 0 to 3 feet from the property line, and it's indicated as not permitted even when protected. So I'm
but they're
wondering.
not openings. It's a solid 3-hour rated. It's not a.
It's not a window. It's just a faux
It's
window.
a piece of glass
No,
that's
it's a piece of
3-hour
glass,
rated.
but
It's
it's
just
the
like a
wall
wall.
is 3-hour. It's not just the glass is 3 hours. We've got to maintain a 3-hour rating. And it cannot,
Is it
cannot be operable.
is it an
It's
opening?
fixed.
It's fixed.
Not considered an
Keith-
opening. The
Keith,
windows are not
there's
operable.
there's some, they're calling them assemblies. They're not actual windows.
Yeah.
But they're assemblies that are rated assemblies, and they act as a wall. They just happen to be clear.
It's not considered an opening then.
If it were a
not
4-hour
considered
wall,
3 assemblies.
It's looked at as a wall assembly that is actually clear.
code reads, if it's a 3-hour wall, you can have fixed glass with a special frame. If it's a 4-hour wall, you can't have anything but a masonry wall that's a 4-hour rated wall. And this is 3-hour. Yeah.
No other questions.
Carol?
Would you mind reading the motion, please?
The previous motion, there were, the landscape item was reduce the width of the curb cut to minimize hardscape along Anacapa Street and maximize the landscaping opportunities. And then there were 5 for the architecture. 1 was the mass, bulk, and scale of this project is still aggressive. The applicant is to study ways to substantially reduce the project, including reducing plate heights. 2, the roof decks, the elevator, and the stair tower are exacerbating the overall height of the building. Applicant to restudy ways to reduce the overall height. 3, show on the plans the 45-foot maximum height limit on the sections and elevations. 4, verify with the building and safety department the 0 lot line requirements of the building code, which may significantly impact how windows are addressed. 5, the board will continue to look forward to further refinement of the architectural style and detailing. Gary.
I do have some questions in regards to the survey, and
Should we find that drawing? I think we should find that.
I think we should find the actual survey,
Staff's going to look for it right now.
and I would like to know whether they are in fact 2 lots, or if there was a lot merger, or what if this is.
Do you want to hold that thought until we pull out the actual survey? An APN map.
It's not on the last page of that old set. I remember presenting that at one time. No, I don't see it. That's not it. No. It's in my drawer.
I don't know, I can go and check.
I'm not going to look at it.
I can go and check and see if it's in my truck. Want to go and check?
Okay. Let's move on to some other questions that people might have, and we'll table that one about the survey. Any other questions from people? You're nodding?
Got a few questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Page A5, the southwest elevation.
That's the
The
street.
front of the building. I'm just wondering, on that left side there, I see a little something is drawn in, almost like a doorway. Is that just a blank wall?
That is a line I put by chance that the fire department would like to have an exit, extra exit,
So it is
from
indicated
the
as
back building.
Okay. So it is proposed to be a doorway.
It could be. I don't know yet until I check with the fire department.
I see.
I'm not going to put a door there, but I have to.
Right.
But
Otherwise, it would be just a blank
yeah,
wall.
I just put it in there lightly so it'll give me. I won't forget.
Okay.
If it is a door, it's going to be flushed out and painted out with a ball, and then
Hopefully,
probably
just
vines will
kind
be
of disappear
over
a
it.
little bit. Okay. Okay, and then as far as the site plan, I know that we kind of looked at this last time, and I'm looking at the two-car garage that you pull straight into, and I imagine you've looked at this with transportation, but is it feasible to actually do a three-point turn out of that garage and exit the structure?
We have 25-foot setbacks in both directions.
Okay.
So we can back out and turn around inside this motor court.
You can.
I don't think I could do it with a Cadillac SUV, but I could do it with my car.
Okay.
I have
We
Volvo spec.
did meet with transportation also with the
To look at that.
pre-app meeting. And
Okay. And then also on this first floor plan, the entry archway off of the sidewalk, you're showing doors, a double door there. Is there a door there? Because I think in the
Gates,
elevation it doesn't
The
show.
Iron
gate,
gates.
Wrought iron gate.
Wrought iron gate. Okay.
Being stronger.
And one last question. A6, the northwest elevation. I guess we're looking... I'm wondering why there are no windows, or almost no windows, on this side of the building. I imagine it's not
No
a real...
view.
No view, and you don't want to let any light into the interior.
Well, we've got in other walls. We've got openings, doors or windows.
Right, okay. Okay, those are my questions.
Thank you.
Pass them on? Clay?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Chris brought up a question about the wrought iron gates for the pedestrian entrance. Are you intending to put a gate or some kind of enclosure at the
We'd like to.
vehicular entrance as
We'd
well?
like to.
But you're not proposing it at this time?
Is it necessary to propose it now? I figured it was one of the things that, as we went on...
Well, you want to get
show
it
more
into the...
detail.
We want to be reviewing that if you're going to do that, so...
I think
I mean, in today's atmosphere, probably want to have gate with machine gun turrets and...
yeah, I was going to put it right there.
Okay. So if we just make a note in the motion to
Come back with additional information if a gate is being proposed, so that it's part of this design, so it's part of the entire thought process.
Okay.
So we'll make that as a note. And then you can come back saying there is one or there isn't one, and we'll look at it from that point.
Mr. Chair, can I just make a quick announcement? I just talked to Allison DeBusk, the case planner, and she, regarding the question of the survey and the property lines, and she said that that'll be something that's required to be submitted to her at further DART level review, so it'll be addressed at Allison's level, and it should come back resolved before they can get any sort of approval here.
Okay. Does that answer some questions, or just doesn't answer the question?
Doesn't answer the question, but postpones it.
Let's
We're going
just
to put the gate in.
Well, no, we're not talking about that. We're now talking about this back no man's land in this dimension, and
this-
staff is going to review that at their level before they can tell us we can give you preliminary approval. So there's not enough information at this time to discuss this. So it's kind of an open-ended, what is this meaning and what's your setback from and all that kind of stuff.
Well, this is from the survey.
This is from your survey, but we just don't have it in front of us to
Okay.
look at right this instant. So we'll just leave that as an open item.
Gotcha.
Gary, any comments? Keith, questions? And then I'll go straight into comments. All right, comments? Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate lowering the building. I think, that's helped quite a bit. Still can't help but feel this kind of central light well is pushing the mass to the perimeter of the project and kind of aggravating the mass issues. But I think, lowering the heights has helped quite a bit. Having some issues with this front elevation, I think this really thin, long, horizontal balcony element kind of out of step with the rest of the more traditional Spanish architecture, and likewise that way this horizontal roof kind of slices into this mass. In particular, it seems like the deck in front of the kitchen area is fairly narrow, and I'm not sure what kind of purpose it's serving. And then just architecturally, it seems like the ground floor wants to have kind of more mass. It feels like there's a lot of mass and weight that's being supported on a very kind of open facade down below. So I have some concerns there. I would like to see, as Gary's pointed out, what the issue or what the actual condition is here with the lot, so that doesn't affect any setbacks. I am still having some issues with the property line windows. I'd like to see when you return something in writing from the building department, because it's contrary to how I'm interpreting the code, and it would affect the architecture. I think that's it.
Okay. Gary? Thanks, Gary. You lost your mic. Oh, I'm sorry. That's her mic.
Yeah, I got mine. I'm having some issues with the front elevation as well. If we look at this one, and I think if we compare it to the old elevation, is that the old set right there? Just so, one of the things I'm noticing in this elevation, as Keith mentioned, the balcony that's over the kitchen area is narrow and not very usable, and is adding some linearity to this project. And I think that the previous plan at least had some character of the entry coming in here with this little roof element, where it's completely hidden in the new elevation. I'm having some issues. This, I think, was a little bit better, but I'm really having some issues of how the street facade is on this, and how there's no community benefit to this. As you're walking by, it's really going to be kind of a hollow-looking building, and it has such wonderful internal paseos, but you can't really appreciate them. So what we're doing is we're giving the residents of the city a side view of a big building and a front view of a big building, and nothing at the street elevation. And I think the public benefit of this building is really low. And I'd like to see some articulation, some street friendliness, something that's going to give a benefit to the city. I also think that the overall massing of it's still pretty large, and I would be in favor of a reduction of the overall massing of it, because we're using so much space on that courtyard, which I do appreciate courtyards. There's something that's really romantic about being able to walk into a courtyard, but this isn't a public paseo. This is a private one. Well, anyways.
And that's what you're seeing when you look through.
Right, and this wall is blocked off, so you don't really see through here. And this wall here is blocked off, so you don't really see light through here. So I really think that the public benefit is
I have an
minimized.
I have a big opening across here.
The wrought iron opening, yeah. I saw.
There's a parking lot right there.
Anyways, I would like to see. I was looking at it for the site plan. Fold it up. And so what we have is we got this big courtyard, but it's blocked off by these walls right here. So all of this entryway is not, all this front yard is not really a public benefit. So I'd like to see something that's going to make the public happier. Some of this walkway here, the hardscape here, maybe that can be addressed in a different way.
I mean, even though these are gates are opening, I mean, you'll be able to see.
You can see all the way through to this back courtyard from right there. You're looking at all of this right here.
Well,
this
it's also very cavernous. I just don't think it is.
And it's open there too. Lights coming down through here, lights coming in here. There's cars parked solid right there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you want? I'm sorry.
Are you done?
I'm done.
I'll jump in with a couple of comments. I appreciate reducing the building. It's working. It's interesting when we look at the articulation here, we look at the articulation in the other drawings. I think this was really busy, and now we got really simple, and so now we can start crafting in a couple more details when we finally refine it. When we get to the point of looking at some details, like your cantilever on the back for the 3-foot, I'm concerned that that's just going to be a 6x post, and heck no, not a 4x, but we need like 6x, 12x. Visually, massing just looks like it's going to support it, so the detailing, when you get to the point, we'll need to look at. This is a good drawing. One thing I looked at here, it sounds minor, but if we're a zero lot line condition, we can't be draining water this way unless we deal with a concealed gutter, and so that was just something that you need to address, just like your windows. The concern that I had was you need to show where the 45-foot max height limit, and it's measured from either the existing grade or the proposed grade, whichever is lower. And if you're at 40 feet, 4 inches, you know you're going to be lower. We need to see a little dotted line because some of your grades are being measured from top of slab. And top of slab, you could have 2 feet worth of fill inside the lot in order to get your drainage to work, and then you're 40 feet. So now we're looking at 44-ish. So it's important that the drawings that come back show what your original site grade is and shows you 45 feet from there. And then we'll make a determination on the height of the building is appropriate, as well as the use and the activity of the upper deck. And that's really all. Personally, I question the functionality of the courtyard in between, and I'm having a hard time visualizing it in my mind. I mean, I can see the two masses, but then when I start to think that they're 8 or 11 feet apart and it's 3 stories up, I just think it's always going to be in shade. And so I don't have a firm enough image in my mind of it's going to be wrong or it's right. I'm just asking you to look at that and think about it as designers and go around town and look at alleyways. You're looking at, I should ask you, what's the separation between these two buildings now that you have 2 individual buildings? Is it 8, 10, 11 feet, or are you like 15?
In some places we're more.
And your tightest is 7 feet, so you have to realize that it's, and then you go up vertical 2, 3, some stories.
Yeah, but steps back a lot too.
I'm having a hard time with that.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Clay?
Madam Chair. So I like the fact that you've lowered the heights. I agree with what Keith was saying and Gary about the front facade. I think if you're gonna go in this vernacular, then go in the vernacular. And I don't think it's there yet. I think we need to study some other buildings and look at how to do the nice little charm-giving elements and the massing, break up the massing and make it look appropriate. My biggest concern on this project is the sheer mass of it, in terms of how large some of the interior spaces are, and they're contributing to the overall mass of the building. As Gary was talking about this paseo or this courtyard in between the two structures, I think it could be really nicely done, but there's areas that are 7 feet apart, and probably the average is about 12, maybe. I mean, there's some real tight spaces going up 3 stories, and it just seems like a dark cavernous hole to me. And if you were able to pull some room out of the living rooms, and I mean, there's massive dining room areas, and you could actually begin to get a much more appropriate distance between the two structures. Not to mention that the building department might look at it as two separate structures for fire separation reasons, and you might have an issue there. But aside from the height and the architecture, I think it's just massive. And I'm not usually one to say that, so I would like to see you figure out how to make this Paseo a little bit more inviting and really address the street presence. I'm also a bit concerned about the back of the property as it relates to your neighbor behind you. It would be really useful to see on the site plan where that adjacent building is, and in the section see the height so we can see the relationship between the two. I don't see anywhere where that's clearly labeled. What's in the section is the building on Yananali that's no longer in construction. So, I'm okay with the lot line, like being on the lot line in this area. There's a lot of buildings that are. I'm not opposed to that. I just think that you could really improve the architecture by shaving some of this down a little bit and articulating the facades better so that it's really emblematic of Spanish architecture. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Claire. Hi, Carol.
I'll stand up there.
Okay.
Site plan. So, all right, the positive parts is that I see that you're doing this project without modifications. So right away I'm seeing that you're trying to work within the rules. And you're only putting 2 units on it, although both of these units are relatively big. We have one that's almost 2,900 square feet. The other one is about 2,400 square feet. And those are big condos. And the first comment in our motion last time was that the mass, bulk, and scale of the project is still aggressive. The applicant is to study ways to substantially reduce the project, including reducing the plate heights. And that, I think, is something that, I kind of feel the board should sort of address that as the big issue and see where we're comfortable with that, with this application. I know we're still talking about sort of the big issues, but I am seeing ways of, just hearing, my colleagues' comments, is that the frontage, what the community is perceiving, is not quite adequate for the amount of development. But I'm also seeing ways that you really are not looking at the site plan in a creative way to give the public something to actually peek into. And one way is to just look at this courtyard opportunity. If this is the garage door, the reality is this is the swing of the car. Oops. The car is never going to go in this area. And to kind of look at that and say, well, why don't you make this like a turf block with ground cover, in the middle, to actually green this out. So as somebody is walking or peeking into it, they do have sort of a greenery. So, and one of our comments is to reduce the hardscape, increase landscape. And it's those little ways of looking at what is the public perception as they peek in. Because your comment that they could peek all the way into this courtyard is just not, I didn't really buy that. I don't think.
I just got arrested for peeking.
Oh, well, then no, don't. Okay, I know.
Carol, that's covered too. It's not going to get any sun. This.
Oh, okay.
This is all.
Okay.
No, this is.
Okay.
The line of the building
open.
is here, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, from here to here.
That could still turn into something for the shade, I think, or even an interesting paving pattern or something. But what I want to focus on my comment is the front facade here, and especially your comment that this might turn into a door required by the fire department, and then your comment further was, oh, but it's just going to be the color of the wall and it's going to be sort of nondescript. That, I didn't want to hear that, because there really isn't any entrance along the front. It very much looks like the side of a building. And what's interesting is that in this neighborhood, we have also seen another application that we struggled with exactly the same thing. So I was thinking maybe it's this like size of lot. But in reality, you could create an entrance experience that fits it more residential. And I think that's something that is just going to have to happen because it just looks like the side of a building. Your old elevation, even though it was taller and more bulky, to me actually had much more architectural interest. And the way the building stepped back with a little more curve and interest, to me, this almost looked less massive than what you're proposing this time. And I think every item on this motion every item is still sort of a question in my mind. I don't feel like all of these items have been satisfied enough to really move it along. I think it's going in the right direction, but I think there still has to be a lot of going back to the motion and really looking at each item still. But it is moving in the right direction.
Well, that's something.
But not quite there to satisfy my concern with the mass Vulcan scale.
All right. Thanks, Carol. Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Carol and Clay on just the overall mass. I think we could still work towards reducing that. It's a real big project on a small lot, surrounded by 1 and 1.5 story buildings. So I think it's really going to pop out there. The one main area that I'm concerned with is this sort of southeast corner, and how it's adjacent to an open parking lot, and the way how quickly the building rises out of that corner. I think it's going to be very imposing. Right, exactly. And I'd like to see some way of softening that corner a little bit more than a tiny little planter in the very front. Yeah, that's my recommendation there. And then as far as in the very front where the planting strip is between the roadway and the sidewalk, I don't think you need that extra little paving that leads up to your front door. I think that should just remain as...
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that won't be necessary, I don't think.
This piece, just keep that separate.
Uh-huh.
Right. And that's mainly it. I think I'm just going to agree that overall it still feels quite large. And those are my comments.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Okay. I missed Keith and Gary's comments, and so I may be repeating something that's already been said, but I agree with pretty much everybody else that I think what's going on here, although I appreciate the reduction in height, I think that's a step in the right direction, and I agree with everybody else that it's going in the right direction. I just don't think it's there yet. And I don't think this Paseo is going to get any sun unless it's in the middle of the summertime, in the middle of the day. And these are your major living spaces, and all of them. And this one doesn't even have a window looking out to it. So I agree with the rest of the board. I'm questioning what this is for, and the reason I'm questioning it is only because it's exacerbating the mass. And if it's a significant amount of square footage on 3 levels, that if it were taken out, the entire project could just compress and allow it to be opened up to the outside. And so...
These are the views of the ocean. And that's why we did this, so we could get, operable windows.
Well, no, if I could just make a comment. I mean, this is just for light coming into these units. I mean, if we close these up and have 5 foot on either side, and these buildings go up 3 stories, which you know that they can, you brought it up at the last meeting, then where are we? we're looking at.
Yeah, you're
at
gonna-
least
you're-
we're able to decorate in here, so if I'm looking out this window here, it's not like I'm looking at a block building.
But you're saying that this, let me just finish my comments. You're saying that this alley is to bring light in, but you've only got 2 windows going out to it. This one's very small. So I'm not really understanding that. So let me just finish my comments. So I agree with the rest of the board on that one. I don't see a substantial reduction in the mass bulk and scale yet, unfortunately. But I do, again, I appreciate the reduction in the height. I don't know what Keith and Gary said about the front balcony, but I had my own take on the front balcony. I don't mind, and I appreciate the front balcony. I think it's too lineal and doesn't look like it has enough support. It looks very much like a kind of 70s Spanish-style balcony to me. It doesn't look like a traditional take on a balcony. And I agree with Clay that the detailing is going to be important, and picking up on some vernacular, traditional Spanish detailing, and possibly breaking up this long stretch of balcony would help this front elevation. But I think the front elevation is not bad. I think it's getting there. But again, more charm-giving elements would be appreciated.
What you can't see on this is a little in front of that. That steps back. This steps back. So it's way beyond.
I understand all that.
And this steps back. And this steps back. So,
I was talking about the balcony.
okay.
And the fact that you're going in the right direction, but I don't think it's quite there yet with the detailing. I also, it's premature for me to start talking about small little details, but since they're here, things like a little thin wing wall that is doing something, I don't know what exactly.
That's the adjacent wall to the next door. There's a.
It's on your property?
Yeah.
It's
actually,
not right here?
Yeah, here, the fence will probably be back this side, but there's a building back there. Yeah. It's actually,
little
I could
details
eliminate
like
the wall,
this,
but because it's the building, adjacent building.
things like just a box to allow light into this interior space, at this interior covered patio. To resolve that with just a box is a very contemporary way of doing this detail, but not so much traditional Spanish vernacular. So those are my comments. So with that, would anybody like to entertain a motion for this project?
Madam Chair, let me just remind you in the motion I passed out the compatibility analysis questions, if you guys could consider those in your motion.
Okay, do we have to do this if we're bringing it back to the full board?
Well, just,
That-
this is topic points, so that you feel there's something in there that can be addressed.
Did you guys read these?
No, we didn't.
Okay. Just really briefly, because we're 10 minutes behind already, it's the compatibility analysis questions that we all have to ask ourselves every time we approve a project. And it's one is compliance with the city charter and general consistency with design guidelines. 2 is compatibility with architectural character of the city and the neighborhood. 3, appropriate size, mass, bulk, scale, and height. 4, sensitivity to adjacent landmarks and historic structures, or historic resources, sorry. 5 is public views of the oceans and mountains. And 5, appropriate amount of open space and landscaping. So I think we could safely say for sure that the project is not there with regards to item number 3, and that being the appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale. As far as the other ones go, Joe, you should probably have a copy of this too. But does anybody else see any problems with any of the other ones?
Chair, as far as number 3, I personally think the height is acceptable.
Height, yes.
It's the mass and the bulk that I'm still struggling with.
I think that the rest of the board's saying that as well, so thank you for clarifying that.
But you know what's frustrating? We look at that building at corner of Gray and, what is that? Yananali? And I mean, these are the type of buildings that are being built in that area, and we feel like we're
And
a
it's-
lot less than that. So I mean, it's kind of confusing to us.
Theirs don't step back like this. Ours steps back. It just goes right straight up. And it's
I mean, just because it's
taller than our
it's
building.
2 residential condos, I mean, it should kind of be looked at in the same light as, you know, that corner building. I mean, I don't know what the use is for that, but
The one difference, if I can attempt to answer that question, is that the style of architecture that you've chosen is not conducive to a 3-story stacked wall. That the style of that building on Yananali and Gray is a contemporary building, so it doesn't have a clay tile roof. It doesn't look for the particular styling elements of stacking back and massing intricacies. That you're going to need that in this project with the style that you've chosen. Does that help? Does anybody else want to comment to the applicant so that he can have some direction on that?
Are you saying we could go contemporary?
no.
Nobody's telling you what style to do the building. And I'm not
we're taking
saying...
up a lot of your time, so
No,
I
no,
don't
and that's
wanna-
okay. We want it to be clear.
Yeah.
And I can understand a little bit of your frustration. For me, the alleyway that you've incorporated isn't doing the project as much justice as it could, and that's why I think it could shrink and help the project. Like I said, the contemporary nature of that other project lends itself to 3-story stacked walls as opposed to the traditional Spanish vernacular. Yeah, Carol?
I just want to weigh in my comment just so we can kind of...
Okay.
Okay, so you don't have the advantage of having our little sheet here, but I'm going to say what I think you've already satisfied, sort of to limit what I feel you need to work on. The last one is appropriate amount of open space and landscaping. I do think you've satisfied that with the comments that you've heard about just increasing. The 5th comment is public views of ocean and mountains. What that means is, are you blocking any public views of ocean and mountains? And I don't see any evidence that you are. So I think that you have, according to what I see, I think that you have satisfied that. The number 4 is sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historic resources. Even though it's close to downtown, I think that your choice of style is sensitive to the historic nature of downtown. So I think your architectural style is satisfying that. Okay, then we go to the other side, appropriate mass, bulk, height, and scale. As I said earlier, the height, in my opinion, is fine. It's just the mass and the bulk, and I'll come back to that in a second. The next item is compatible with architectural character of city and neighborhood. I think it is, with the exception that you're not giving a true front appearance. And I think you could work on that without a lot of, grief. I think that's a solvable issue. And then the first one is compliance with city charter and muni codes. Yes, in my mind, you have satisfied that. So it's really about the frontage, getting a real direct neighborhood residential front that looks like a neighborhood, so the building doesn't look like the side of a building. And then the size, mass, and bulk, it's really the mass and bulk, those 2 words. And I think with some pushing and pulling, I think you're there. I think you're going in, you could massage it down, and you really have to push and pull and really scrutinize the program. So, Madam Chair, that's where I am with these 6 issues.
Okay. So nobody wants to craft a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Keith?
This would be indefinite continuance back to full board with the following comments. The board appreciates the reduction in height
Of the structure, but still has issue with the appropriateness of the size and mass and bulk of the building, and specifically questions whether the interior courtyard or interior void aggravates that particular issue. And then two, that generally the board feels that the architecture is headed in the right direction. However, they have concerns with the street facade, and particularly the horizontal nature of and detailing of the balcony, and the lack of addressing the street with more pedestrian friendly amenities. Next item would be when the applicant returns, the board would like to see a site plan that indicates the surveyed lots, including the rear kind of vestige lot and the outline of the neighboring building behind. And the board would like to see something in writing from the building department about the property line windows being acceptable from a code standpoint.
All right.
That's the motion.
That's your motion. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it, and I'd like to tack on two other items with the first understanding. First one is to show the 45-foot height limit as measured from existing grade or proposed grade, whichever is lower. And the second item is to provide additional information about the gate at the motor court if one is being proposed.
Okay. I heard something from Chris that we might want to add, and that would be to consider elimination of an additional portion of the front planting strip at the entryway. That was the suggestion here was made that they could get, increase, did I not say that? To increase the planting strip and decrease the hardscape in the planting strip at the driveway.
That's fine.
And then, and I heard, and it might be worthwhile for us to include, for the applicant to incorporate traditional Spanish vernacular detailing in, I don't know whether that's carrying forward that would be actually carrying forward number 5 from the last meeting that said further refinement of the architectural style and detailing. Is that all right? All right, anything else? Okay, so all those in favor? What? Go ahead, Gary.
I just wanted for consideration of perhaps larger openings in this area right here. It's a courtyard. There's no buildings next to it at the present moment, and
These are cars.
Yeah, even
No,
at
we
that,
could,
I
Yeah, we
think,
could do that.
I think if it was opened up, it wouldn't be dark. They could put vines on there and a fence. They could have some arched openings. So I think
Yeah, we did open it up.
I think that should be opened up.
Yeah.
if I may hear.
Yeah.
What would say?
The applicant to study the potential for additional openings on the south side to get light into the courtyard. Motor court.
All right?
Thanks.
We're all okay with that? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
See ya. Hopefully before
keep-
Christmas.
You're moving forward. Keep moving forward. It's all good. All right, item number 2, 1600 Cecil Cook Place. Cecil or Cecil? How do you pronounce that? Cecil?
Whatever you like.
Cecil. Cecil's very British sounding to me. Cecil Cook.
I was told it's like Cecil.
Is it
By
Cecil?
British.
Yeah. All right. This is a new project,
New project.
and it's comments only. And we have who here?
Gary Abbott from Mag Aviation Fuel,
All right.
1600 Cecil Cook Place, the property location.
And I'm Gary's partner, Mitch Laskowski.
Okay.
We're with Mag Aviation Fuel.
All right. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Okay. It's a proposed 12,000 gallon above ground fuel storage tank, catering to the general aviation population at Santa Barbara Airport. Currently, there are none installed for self-serve fueling. This is a fully self-serve, which is applicable at most all airports. And right now it is located at, we have entered into a lease agreement on the former Forestry Department ramp with the airport and the city of Santa Barbara to be located just there. To create this project is to remove approximately 440 square feet of existing concrete and over excavate. Specifications are, I believe, are on the front page. Recompact and install, reinstall 440 square feet of concrete with appropriate footings to support the fuel tank. Kind of a small project, not a condominium, but equally as important.
Can you show us, direct us to the elevations of the fuel tank?
Should be on page 2 of the plans.
And it's a section. So what I'm looking for is how high it is off the ground.
We have a new drawing that we didn't, because we were...
It's 11 feet high.
It's 11 feet high.
The top of this is...
Because this is 7.
Yeah, it's a protective bollard.
So wouldn't this be about maybe 8 to 10?
That's correct. The top of the tank is approximately 10 feet, and we have a spout, vapor spouts that stick up about, I think, 10 feet, 11 inches. Overall dimension.
No, I didn't see any photos.
So sorry.
That's all right. That would be good. We should have
That's
started
a
with
finished.
that. That's what it looks like, finished.
Yeah.
So it's a tank and the bollards.
Correct.
And then can you show us, let's look at some other photos. Can you explain some of the photos about where it's going so we can see
Sure.
how visible it is?
Absolutely.
From, what's all this stuff? This one photos.
There you go.
Okay, so this is
the former Forestry Department ramp. Is what we're looking at in all this hardscape area. This is an existing hangar. I don't know who holds the lease to it.
let's look at, this photo is looking,
This photo
looking
is
east.
looking this way. This building is that hangar.
Is that hangar, okay. And this is looking north.
Which would be this direction.
And when complete, aircraft will transition left to right. Okay, does this photograph show where the tank is going?
It's depicted by the orange markers that are out here, placed on the concrete.
Okay, that helps.
They're like the story poles.
Not quite, but in plan view. Okay, and here they are again, looking west.
Sure. We're trying to give you all different views and angles.
And this is, the yellow marker shows where the utility pedestal will be placed, which is,
Utility pedestal will be phone and power. That's where we'll come in, and that's where we will tie into.
is that right here?
That's correct.
All right, is everybody looking at these photos on the screen? Or can they see?
I have an extra one if somebody needs one.
An extra copy of photos?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I'll put that one on there. All right. Is that your presentation?
It is, unless you need some more information. I will add that these bollards depicted in the picture are shorter than what we will in place here. We wanted a little bit of extra protection.
You want 7 feet?
Correct. Yeah.
So it's more like that size?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Let's do public comment.
Just one letter from Ms. Paula Westbury in opposition.
Okay. Questions from the board? Yes, Keith.
Are there any safety or code restrictions as far as the color that the tank's painted?
Safe. Oh, like for instance, should it be yellow or red or et cetera?
The color
None
based
that I've
on
ever
other...
heard of. Typically, the tank is just colored white for obvious reasons, so it doesn't reflects heat, and it is an epoxy, a real thick epoxy coating on the outside to protect it from rust and et cetera. But as far as it being marked red, yellow, et cetera, none that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Sure.
More questions? Gary?
Yes. Is there any proposal for any landscaping or any fence screening or anything on the chain link fence in this area right here to the parking lot?
You have basically a 150-foot path that you're placing this in this area.
Madam Chair, if I may, Andrew Ramonda, planner at the airport. We're not allowed to screen the chain link fence at the airport operations area. That's the secure area for the airfield. It's a TSA requirement that that be open so that law enforcement can see through.
Thanks, Andrew. More questions?
Madam Chair, I have 2 questions. One of them has to do with the sign that you have shown there. Is that part of this application that was in these drawings?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's a future development.
All right, then the next time you come by, we'll just make sure that that's not on the drawings. And then I guess because there's the sign, the height is not going to be an issue with FAA and height restrictions and all that kind of stuff.
Correct. Yeah, we've looked into that as recent as about 2 weeks ago, and
Okay.
that still remains clear.
Would you mind if I put an X on this? Just
Sure.
That'll go to the sign committee.
Yeah, and that's why we didn't even want to go with it. It's not necessary, not required at this time. Let's get through the building part of it. And
Clay, do you have any questions?
You want to put it over here?
Carol?
Oh, that's great.
Chris, questions?
Similar to Keith's, the color of the bollards, are those yellow?
Yes, those will be required to be yellow.
They will, okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And if I may, Madam, we would like to show this, the footing for the sign. We want to build it into our project. We
Okay.
just don't want to put up a sign.
Okay. It's underground, so it doesn't require our
Correct.
review. Carol, comments?
The comment is that I think this is a minimal type of like application. You're removing a parking lot and putting in a different slab. It's basically 40 by 12 by 6 or whatever. I see that there's no issue here, and I think, well, anyway, I have no problems with this.
Madam Chair?
Gary?
Is there a reason why this is not going to be subterranean?
Many reasons. One is in today's fuel tank installations, everybody wants them above ground for obvious reasons, for below ground storage tank leakage. Permits are obviously more expensive. This is, in all applications and in all airports, everything is above ground. It's a simpler way to detect if there's a leak, future leak, if there's no corrosion factor. There's many benefits for this, and that's really the direction that the nation's going. Everybody's building. I don't even know if you can apply and get in a below ground storage tank permit any longer. So, and we just did this exact same tank. This is ours at Hesperia about 4 years ago. So quite familiar with the installation and what's required for an above ground storage. I hope that answered your question.
Okay. Do you want to make your comments? Gary?
Well, yeah, sure. My comment is I would like it to disappear as much as possible, and if that's with painting and without having any big blue signage on the outside of it. If they could put fencing around the tank itself, I think that would be appreciative. If they can, because it is visual. It's visually, you can see it from the parking area here of where there's businesses, and I think it's a bit of a, without being able to put landscaping or having all these restrictions on it. I used to have a plumbing shop on the airport. We had a subterranean gas tank there, and it's on the same property. So I have a hard time with having a new installation that's that industrial, that close to the fence line. So I would like to see some ways of making it a little bit more friendly to the eye.
Do you have any suggestions?
Perimeter fencing around the tank.
Well, we say they said they can't do it. Andrew answered that question.
Around the tank. I asked about the perimeter fencing at the property line.
Yeah.
But Andrew, we didn't say anything about perimeter fencing on the tank. Looks like that one has some. So maybe some higher perimeter fencing on the tank or something.
Is that a fence, or is that just the bottom half of the tank painted gray?
That's bottom half of the tank painted gray.
Okay, so
Yeah, there's no fencing.
There's no
around.
fencing. Is any fencing allowed?
I'm not familiar with any restrictions on putting up a fence. No.
Around, but you
as
have
long
a
as
restriction.
long as the aircraft can navigate around the tank, it should be acceptable.
But you can't have a fence on the back side between the parking lot and the fence. That's what you said they couldn't do?
We cannot screen the airport operations area security fence.
Which
That's
is
the
right
one-
here.
That's the one, yes. That's,
Okay, that clarifies that. Okay, Keith, comments?
I guess my only comment would
Be considering painting the upper portion of the tank some, kind of neutral color to just kind of make it not quite so obvious and stand out. And that's it.
Okay, would a neutral color be whites or blues, or no blues, or a white tank?
Off-white, beige,
I'm thinking kind of maybe more in the grayish tone. You got all that
Yeah.
paving out there.
on the top half.
Yes, correct.
Madam Chair, I would agree with what Keith's saying about painting it a different color. I was thinking more in the buff tone, so you've got 10 people, you'll get 10 different suggestions. And the other thing I was thinking about adding like ribs, like 12 feet on center, 10 feet, add just a 2-inch wide band going around there to break this 40 thing down into little segments so it kind of looks like drums. It's kind of foo-foo. Or make Disneylanding it up, or like a wine barrel kind of in the wraps around a wine barrel. But something like that just to sort of give it a little bit more texture and interest, because it is what it is.
Right.
The second thing I was going to say is no graphics, no signage, no blue lines. The third thing is no footings for a future proposed sign. Get the approval and put the footing in, or don't get the approval, because getting a vertical pole-mounted sign might be challenging through the sign committee, because they always like ground signs even though you're dealing with airplanes. So before you invest all the money in a sign that's going to be 13 feet tall, make sure that you even get one on the airport property.
Yeah, what he's saying is go through sign committee before you put your footing in.
Yeah.
Even though it's not our purview, the footing for the sign is going to be included in this permit or not, it's a good idea to get it through the sign committee first.
Madam Chair, signs on the airfield are not in the purview of the sign committee.
All right, there you go.
They're at the discretion of the airport director.
Okay.
A 13-foot tall sign?
It won't be that tall.
That's correct. The height restriction would be placed by FAA thresholds and not by sign committee purview.
Okay, but just use some caution when you use that, because some people might scream later when it gets erected.
Comments, Clay? No comments? All right,
I will make. Can I make a
not
comment?
yet. Let me make mine.
Okay, go ahead.
My turn.
You can.
I'm gonna have to just agree that I think painting this is a better solution than fencing it. And normally I probably wouldn't say that, but because of the simplicity of it just being a tank, that if you're going to put a fence around it, it's still going to look like a block of something anyway. So I don't have an issue per se with it being a tank. That's I'm kind of hearing that from everybody else except Gary. Which doesn't take away the importance of his comment, but that's my individual take on it. So I don't have an issue except for that I think the color should be a little less glaring white. And I'll let you, with all these comments that you've gotten, take that and kind of go with it.
One of the things that he and I did talk about was making sure that the aesthetics did fit on the airport. We've been around. We know what's there and what it looks like. And one of the things we did talk about was, hey, let's make this fit into Santa Barbara's scheme. If it.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Carol.
Motion for preliminary approval.
We can't. It's comments only. But Michelle, is the environmental done? Can we make a motion, or is it comments only?
Okay. Positive comments to return back to consent. With the following comments. Present alternative colors, and I just want to ask the board, for the top portion, are we all okay with the gray bottom? Okay, for the top portion, period. That's the only comment that I heard that was a consensus.
The bottom is always gray?
We can make it any color that we want.
If we say that only the top is going to be another color, then they might come back with the bottom white.
Well, no, they presented it gray, and we're saying the gray bottom is okay.
Are you presenting it gray on the bottom? That's just the way this one is?
Yes, ma'am.
But that's what he said. He said the bottom is gray. That's what he's presented.
Identical to that, unless we ask for it to be changed.
Okay.
Okay. Carol made the motion. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Clay?
I have two comments to ask if this can be added. First of all, there were some electronic pedestal mounts. Can we ask them to provide a color for that? And if it's going to be galvanized, because it's along the galvanized chain link fence, or if it's going to be painted the green like all the State Street stuff is painted, but at least come back with what the colors are for your telephone pedestal utilities. So just ask them for a color on that. And then the other one is requirement to remove all signage from this application and the footing for the sign.
Okay, so that would be included in the motion.
Did you get those, Kathy?
And just to help the applicant, for the utility box color, is there a color that you're striving for, just to help him?
I would more go into what the airport future color scheme is going to be, which is kind of a rusty brown. All their new signage that they have, because they have a complete sign package that went through the sign committee for comments, and so it should be likewise. There's already a sign concept for the airport, and they have a color concept, so your signage as well as your utility boxes should fall into that vernacular.
Okay, so that's the motion revised.
The two items being the color and...
you add, Kathy, the utility box should come back to consent with a color compatible with the airport color documented scheme.
And remove the signage.
And remove the signage from
the
this application.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Gary's opposed. Motion carries. Thank you.
No, I'm just saying if the signage approval goes to the airport administration, then if they're okay with that.
Let it be here now.
Oh, okay. But I mean, we still.
Okay, item 3, 124 Los Aguajes. And we're on time again. And we have minutes from the last meeting, Michelle? Yes. We have an easy project. The second one is easy. All right. We have Everybody's familiar with this project, right? We have seen this 2 weeks ago. Does anybody need the motion read because it was so recent? Is everybody all right? Okay. Really quickly. The motion from 2 weeks ago was the board does not feel that the project has progressed enough for it to move forward to the Planning Commission, as some elements still need to be resolved. Refine the front elevation, the stairs at the first and second floor, and the glass pop-out elements at the third floor. The board feels that the floor area could be refined and reduced to be more efficient and therefore not need the second and third floor mods. 3, refine the stairway on the roof. 4, minimize the trash bins. And 5, carry forward the previous comments from the June 1st meeting, which state, number 3, the project needs further refinement of the style, including reduction of the amount of plaster on the front elevation, which is contributing to the front mass, bulk, and scale. And number 4, create a more pedestrian-friendly street frontage. That's it. Your name for the record?
I'm Pete Allen, architect for the project, and with me is Mark Edwards, my favorite client. And we have David Black, our landscape architect, here to answer any questions you guys may have from the last meeting. We don't have anything new on the landscape front. So Mark would like to make a few comments.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm Mark Edwards, and I'm the owner of 124 Los Aguajes. And I just want to say that, kind of in a big picture situation, that this project is, as Don has said, we've been here a few times, and and we really do believe in this process. We think this process is a way that all projects become better in the city of Santa Barbara. I understand that the style of this project is not plain Jane, and that's fine. I'm excited about that. I think it's good bridge architecture in this particular area, and I do appreciate this board working with the style for many times. This and the previous board, actually, and I do want to affirm that we have always, no less than a 7-to-1 vote from this board and the previous board, have an affirmation that this style is appropriate, and we continue to rely on that, and I'd like to thank you for that. Also, we have tried to listen very closely to what the board says. Sometimes we might miss it, sometimes I think we're right on the money, but regardless of that, we're willing to do the work. So we want to listen, we want to be as clear as we can. My architect, I think, is wonderful at that. My consultants, our mission here is to listen and try and be responsive within the context, of our solution to this project and this architectural style. So we believe in it. We appreciate your support with the style. We also appreciate your considerations with the difficult development on this property. You guys have in the past given us messages that some considerations in the zoning would be appropriate depending on how they relate to the architecture, and we continue to rely on that. So with that little bit of introduction, and again, the overall picture is we believe in this process.
PC.
We get into PC. We do need to move on to PC, and what we want to make sure that this board understands is PC has asked for some support in the style and whatever. Our planner has written a nice memo about that, but basically we need to go to PC to get a project, and we understand that. We're not asking you to approve the planning considerations. What PC's asked for is a little feedback on the architectural ramifications, and PC, and I've talked with PC members to make sure I haven't missed that. They understand it's their job to either grant a mod if that's what it is, or give us the considerations from a planning standpoint. So again, working with this board is important for them, it's important for us, but we need to move to PC so that hopefully we bring back a project so that we can get into, from the concept review, I know we've gotten probably deeper in the concept review process here, we appreciate that, but when we come back for preliminary, if there's other issues that we need to work out, be front elevations or whatever, we're, again, willing to do the work and feel like that's the appropriate way to do it within the guise of a project that we know that we have. So with that, I want Pete to explain where we've worked since the last time we were here.
Okay. What we've done since our last meeting is went back and studied trying to pull this stair that we had on the eastern side, which caused some concern from the board because we had some two-story portions of it here. So it's not shown correctly on the site plan here, but we're essentially pushing that back. So all we've got now that's encroaching on this side of the project is the stair going up to the landing. And
From here
from
to here.
That's it. And I'll show it to you on the
And
next
you're going,
page.
your hand's going to here, but is it from here to here?
A 4-foot landing?
Right there to there?
Yeah.
And this would not touch the ground? Or penetrate that line?
This is back.
All right.
So it's not encroaching in the setback.
Okay, let's see what that looks like.
And what that does, we tried to pull this in, also respecting, the comments last time to try to make this a little more pedestrian friendly, and I'll talk about that in a little more detail here in a second. By pulling this stair up farther to get it closer to the street, this door just became insanely wide. It just didn't work. So the public benefit also associated with this modification is that we can get that guest parking spot on the project, and helps relieve some of that neighborhood concern of parking congestion. So that's what we want to take to the commission and have them, justify or help us with. On the other floor plans, this gives you an idea really what it looks like on the second floor. So here's your 6-foot setback. We have a landing, and we're coming down. So that's the extent of growth. That's been minimized as much as possible. We had a little little element here on the third floor that was encroaching for our stairs. We've made this a little more efficient here and eliminated that encroachment. So the only two that we have are this little guy here and the use of the deck on the third floor. Those are the two mods that we're requesting. Okay? Up on the roof, we eliminated our tall roof access hatch. We'll go to a simple, I haven't figured this out yet, but it's a simpler low hatch there. And we reduced the height of the trash vents as the board requested last time. Going to the elevations, the two elevations of concern were last time were the east elevation and the elevation facing the street. So starting with this elevation, what we've done is the plaster used to come up like so, and we've reduced the amount of plaster, which is one of the comments you guys had before, and also you guys wanted to reduce the amount of glass as well. We studied bringing as much glass on here as we could, but this got a little wimpy, and I think this composition works really nicely. We also extended this guy. Got some 3D shots to help you see what we're doing here. We pulled this guy out, this overhang, to get a good shadow line separation. Maybe do a little trellis penetration like we're doing elsewhere to give some interest and shadow line interest to that wall. And then down here we had shown 8x8 block before. Previously we were using a ledger stone, very horizontal. Gone back to that, and that was one of the things we heard last time as well.
This is stone, you said?
Yeah, a ledger stone.
The ledger stone,
about
the dry
3-inch.
stack.
Right, that just comes straight across. Now, talking about entrances in this style of architecture, Mark put together this little exhibit for everybody. But it's important that in this style of architecture, the entrances are not celebrated whatsoever. They're hidden. They're subtle. They're clues to the entrances. But you can't, find the front door on these guys is tough. This is the one up on Pedregosa that gives you a good clue about the style of architecture. So the path to the building gives you the hint at the entrance, and it's pretty obvious, I think, when you're on the street, that this is the entrance to the building. We added a little low wall here to give some ID, to that area, but we'll do something subtle. Again, pulling this stair up front. We pulled this fence back here so to allow a little more visibility in this area. But this is the subtle entrance up the stairs, where the real entrance to the building is up on the second floor, in that patio area on the second floor. Mark's challenge to me was to find the entrances to these buildings, you see from the street. and the style of architecture, well, the entrance, I can't lose a thought. In any event.
Okay.
These are shots of the side of the building. We made this little pop out a little bit smaller, brought it forward a little bit, reduced the amount of glass, simplified the amount of glass on this elevation, which was one of the refinement comments we heard last time. We're going to pull this stair back, and this screen wall, we're not calling it a vegetated wall anymore. It'll just be a screen wall, decorative. Is there, and it's now flush with the other walls. These are other shots of the model if anyone else wants to see it coming around the back. That didn't seem to be much of an issue last time.
Okay.
So, I think to summarize, if I can really quickly, we've refined the architecture as was asked of us. Our second and third floor encroachments have been eliminated. We've reduced the impacts of that stair on the roof. Everything has been brought down. We've refined the architecture with less glass, less plaster at the street, with the ledger stone.
Did you address the trash bins?
It wasn't the bins. It was it was the vents on the roof. It wasn't the bins themselves.
Oh, okay.
There's some vents here.
I didn't catch that on the notes.
Yeah.
Oh, it should have been the
Yeah,
vents,
these guys are a lot
not trash
higher last
bins.
time. Yeah.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Okay, we're in public comment. We have
Don,
two
before we
speakers.
get to that, can I make just one comment about Pete's presentation?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to say, because Pete did ask me to do the study on the entries, and that has been something that's certainly of a concern. I do appreciate the board bringing it up and us. I don't want to be heard that the entries are not important to a building, because obviously we want to get into the building, but in this style of architecture, the composition of the building is what's important, and the path to the entry is always very easily defined. Even in the building such as this, where the building itself takes on the pivotal position, the path to the entry is always fine. And what we've done here in understanding and looking back to the classics and looking back to the recent ones in Santa Barbara is we have enhanced the path to our building book by bringing the staircase forward, adding a low wall, making a nice place for the numbers. So the path is important, and our understanding is when you see the composition of the building and you have that as a vision and you find the path, you follow the path and it ends up at the front door. And that's how all of the modernists have set up their buildings. Is the door is not a Grecian Parthenon, a sacred place to cross under. It is the place to find it. So
I think we get that.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you. Any other item that you want to address beside the door? All right, Kellum DeForest, followed by Robert Maxon.
I have my remarks here too. Good afternoon, Kellum DeForest again. Your Architectural Board Review was established with the following instructions. Ensure that high standards of design are maintained in development and construction in the city of Santa Barbara, I think. The second item is protect and preserve as nearly as practicable the natural charm and beauty of Santa Barbara, including the historical style, qualities, and characteristics of the building structures and architectural features associated with and established by its long, illustrious, and distinguished past. I will again ask, does this design meet the standards you are sworn to uphold? This is the sixth time the applicant has come before you. Does he not understand your and the Planning Commission's instructions about size, bulk, and scale with no modifications? Having known Mr. Neutra, my father, Lockwood DeForest, was the landscape architect for the Tremaine House in Montecito. And I don't know where they are now, but I think maybe they've been a little reduced. He would never have allowed roof projections to mar the horizontality of the roof line. Secondly, does the structure protect and preserve the natural charm and beauty of Santa Barbara? One of the principal tenets of the international style is that the structure is designed to stand alone. Certainly the United Nations does that. The United Nations in New York does that, as does the Tremaine House in Montecito, and even the Lemon Tree Motel on State and Alamo. And again, the photographs are all of standalone structures that were just shown. How can you conclude that this condo squeezed in between two buildings stands alone? Does it, as currently configured, fit into the historical style, qualities, characteristics, structures, and architectural features associated with Santa Barbara's long, illustrious, and distinguished past? Thank you.
Thank you, Kello. Robert Maxim.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert Maxim. I'm a neighbor to this property about 400 feet away on 121 West Gianninoli Street. I have been following this project for the past 2.5 years. Basically, my concern has been the height, bulk, and size of the project, and it's requiring modifications. Earlier, the developer mentioned PC, the Planning Commission. I was at that Planning Commission meeting a few months ago, maybe it was 3. There were 3 members, all of them female in this case, who explicitly said, demanded, that the building should be made smaller so it fits on the lot without modifications. I will ask you, is it smaller? Are there still modifications? Question mark. Christopher, this was at the last meeting here, I don't know his last name. Christopher commented that the 4 supports on the east side are 4 mods, not 1. These are still 4 mods. Thank you.
All right. I'll bring it back to the board for questions.
Madam Chair, also there is a letter of
I'm
opposition
sorry.
from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Thanks, Michelle. Keith, do you have any questions? No. Gary? No. No. Clay? Go ahead.
I wanted to understand something that I was seeing here. These 5 dark elements, what are
Those are the condensers.
What are they? Those are the condensers?
Yeah.
And these are the vents beyond?
Correct. And that's the top of the elevator shaft.
Okay. This is the top here.
Right. You can see this here.
And this element is just a
It's a privacy
guardrail,
screen. Yeah.
for lack of a better term. Okay, I think those were mine.
All right. Carol, questions? Chris?
2 minor questions. The trash staging area out at the street, is that a different material, or is that just indicated as trash staging?
That's a requirement from our DART review.
And then this spider leg that we have in the front, what's the thickness of that?
6 inches. 4 to 6 inches. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 5 by 5.
Okay, that's my question.
All right. Comments? Keith?
Well, I think, you've resolved the issues up on the roof as far as the projections there, and I think the modifications to the street elevation and reduction of the plaster, extending that horizontal line to break that up are all positive moves. So I think you've pretty much responded well to all the comments we had last time. That's it.
Gary?
I still believe that, and continue to believe that this is not compatible with the neighborhood. Aside from that, I think that the applicant has done all of the things that this board has asked him to do. exception of what I asked them to do. The only thing I could, minor issue is maybe they could combine the trash stacks into one, so we can reduce the emissions. I believe there's multiple trash stacks, is there?
Yeah, we have one that's going to the roof to pick up the green waste, so...
one's actually...
So one's actually needs to be separate, but we could take the other two and put them together.
Do that.
Paul?
Just a couple of quick things. What Keith said applies. One change that I noticed is you created a shadow line here, and it's not shown here. And I think it would be beneficial to have that shadow line because it wraps around, would connect to here. So I think, once again, you're still playing with it, and it makes sense. The second, when you go to the next step, if this is going to be your green roof, you might as well color it green because you look at this going, what's going on the roof, but then you start understanding that it's going to be green and there'll be a line of green. So that's just a minor comment. And then the last thing having to do about the mod, whether it's in the side yard and over in the front, the way I understand it is that you're putting a significant rear yard setback due to the creek, and that was negotiated with the planning department and so then exchanged. You're doing these encroachments in these other two areas, so that's for them to handle as a planning issue. Architecturally, I understand it. I thank you for moving your stairs like you did and changing the interior, and thank you.
Clay?
Madam Chair. I'm struggling with this project because, one, I really like it, and I like that somebody's proposing, that you're proposing this style of architecture, and I'll disagree with Gary. I don't think it's inappropriate. There may be other styles that somebody might say is more appropriate, but I don't necessarily think that this is inappropriate. Having lived in that neighborhood, there's a lot of stuff going on. For me personally, I think that there's little refinements to it that I can see that I could nitpick, but I just don't want to. I mean, I think we can begin to move this forward. I'd like to see some refinement to certain areas, but if we're talking about just pushing this on to go to PC and go to the next step, then I'm much more comfortable with where we're at today than previously.
All right. Thanks, Clay. Carol?
I'm just going to say, where's the front perspective? Where is this one? Right here. No, there's one that's more flat. Not. There's one that's just
The clay steal it?
Fair enough. Okay, maybe it's there. Okay, but I want to see this out for a second. Okay, so, and I say this with all due respect because I honor the talent that you bring to the table here. All of these examples are charming residential examples where you do not see the front door, but the experience of going from the street to the front door is a residential style. The garage is minimized. You are not directed to the garage, but you are directed to a journey that one takes from point A to the front door. And when I see all of these examples, I say, isn't that wonderful? What I see here is this is not accomplished. What is seen from the community is a big gaping void that really does not lead to a destination that has, some kind of charm or residential feel to it. I disagree that a person's experience is going to be on this little path where you circulate through this and then it terminates visually to a set of stairs. I do believe people are going to more aptly just walk through the big garage driveway and then find the stairs over here. Our comments from the last motion, and I still am not comfortable with how the building looks from the street. And this isn't an office building, it's a residential building. And I don't think in that regard it's compatible. If you would present something that had this feeling to it, where the garage opening didn't dominate the space, I would feel probably differently. But I understand that this is your program, but I'm still thinking this is, it's unfortunate. And hearing everybody else's comments, I do realize that I'm in the minority. So, but I just have to say what I see here. Where is the comment here, Madam Chair, where referred to the front facade? I remember. Okay,
Create a more pedestrian-friendly street frontage.
Okay, that's the only comment here that I don't think that you accomplished to my satisfaction. So, there it is.
Carol, I'm not trying to argue with you, but there are a couple examples on this board that the garage and the vehicular circulation is kind of front row center. Here.
Strive for the best examples, not sink to the mediocre examples.
I'm just trying to, I thought maybe it might be confusing to the applicant that you're saying that in all these examples you said that, okay. All right, I don't have anything further to add. I agree that, oh, Chris, sorry.
I wouldn't mind
Chris.
adding something. Few pretty minor things. The one little spider leg that comes down and supports a lot of visual weight seems to bother me a little bit. It seems very light or not hefty enough or something. But I think David has some king palms there, and I think adding a few more of those might help to baffle that a little bit. Excuse me. So I don't know how the architects feel about that, but that's, to me, it looks like it's holding up a lot, and it's very very light. I also question the appropriateness of this new wall that's put in the corner over there. I guess it's the southeast corner, and the material for that, as a question, is that the same as what's on the front facade?
Just the stone.
Okay, and I guess to me it kind of depends on what the planting is, but if it's real low planting around there, the wall could just look like it's sort of popping up out of, yeah, there's the wall at the corner of the property. So I would encourage, I guess, a little taller planting there if that wall is going to stay, just so it helps to ground that a little bit. And then my only other thought was, if we could turn to the site plan briefly. Yeah, that's good. I was just looking at this line right here of the driveway. Is 14 the minimum that you're required as far as the width for the drive?
That's the minimum we can get to work. We had 18 before.
Okay.
And you guys asked us to reduce the width to 14.
Yeah.
This right here, this is our back out.
Right,
We're
okay.
just making.
Yeah, so the line I'm looking at is this one right here that kind of comes to a point and then goes straight back. And I guess I would just encourage, I don't know if you want to get into any kind of curvature, but maybe that's sort of a looser S-curve of some sort, so that the draw on that, but maybe it sort of comes in like that. So the planting and the way it intermingles could be a little more balanced, I think, there. That's about all. Pretty minor.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I do have one comment, although I agree with Keith in what I'm hearing from the majority of the board that's in favor of the project is that it's time for this project to move forward. The comment that I'll make is with regards to that image board that Mark really helps. Let me see that again. And what I do agree with Carol about is that the all of these images have something about them that makes the project approachable, and it's not that I don't think it's a good project. It's that I think that this experience when you're walking up, and then there is this very large, let me see the front elevation perspective again. There's that large void that you have to walk under. And I don't think it's ideal, and I think that's maybe where this project is not hitting the mark that I see in all these other ones, and that is that you're having to walk under this large mass, and it's kind of cold. It's not going to be light. It's going to be shaded, and it's going to be probably breezy. And
You're talking about this mass here?
this walking, when you walk
But you're
underneath
not
here.
you're walking like that.
Um,
And Carol thinks people are going to walk like that, but
Well, okay, they're walking along here, and they're walking under a structure. So that's where I think that in all these I see not walking under a heavy two-story structure, and that is, to me, maybe the only downfall of this project is the lack of bringing it down to a human scale. And I think maybe that's what Carol was touching on in her pedestrian experience, and I have to agree with that. But I don't necessarily think that in your case the vehicular circulation or the visibility of the doors is a negative factor. In fact, you do see it, but I appreciate that it's off to the side on your project as opposed to being front row and center. That I don't think is the biggest drawback. I think that it's having to walk underneath this mass that is making it not feel psychologically comfortable as you walk up to the building. So that being said, would anybody like to make a motion? No? All right. Then I guess this would be a motion for what?
Madam Chair?
Indefinite continuance to the Planning Commission with the following comment, that the board feels that the applicant has sufficiently addressed the previous concerns with regards to refinement of the front elevation, the mass, bulk, and scale, the reduction of the modifications, and the refinement of the architectural style. The board, the second comment, Kathy, would be the board does, however, feel that some further refinement could be made to the experience of the pedestrian as they enter the property, and additional landscaping and hardscaping elements that address that issue would be appreciated. Does that make it? Does that sound? Oh no.
That's too much.
I can't repeat it. That's why I'm saying no.
The board feels that the applicant has sufficiently addressed previous concerns regarding the front refinement of the front elevation, the mass, bulk, and scale, and the reduction of the modifications and refinement of architecture style. The board feels that some further refinement might be made to the entrance of the property, and the additional hardscape and landscaping to address that issue would be appreciated.
So that's the motion. Does anybody want to second the motion? Keith, under discussion. Carol?
I think, well, I'd appreciate for the first part that you would say the majority of the board, And then somewhere, since these are comments to Planning Commission, I'd like to just say at least one board member feels that the front facade needs residential scale refinements.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. I think that the first part of the motion, Kathy, should state the majority of the board rather than the whole board. And I think that in refining the second item of the motion, if you could just add in there, we need to add something about being, what was the thing about human scale or no?
Problem that looks like an office building to me. So residential elements.
Residential element. So if it could be added in there when we stated further refinement of the hardscape and landscape to a residential
To create a pedestrian-friendly entrance.
to create a pedestrian-friendly residential experience. Okay.
One board member is saying that? Is that what you're saying?
I would say, yeah, I would just say one board member feels that.
Great. Madam Chair, if I could just ask a couple things. Since we're going to the commission, they're going to want some comments specifically on the two mods that we're asking for. And it sounds like you kind of said they're okay in a roundabout way.
And
this mod and the deck mod.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead,
under discussion, if we could add another comment then that the board feels that the proposed modifications have no aesthetic impact on the project.
How about, if you don't mind discussing this, that the requested modifications are relate to the extra rear yard setback that was requested by the Planning Commission, so that there's a correlation between the two, not that they got a mod.
They don't relate, though.
Madam Chair, can I suggest that we do a straw vote? Because basically what the PC was asking is the ABR would comment on the requested modifications' aesthetic impact on the proposed mass bulk and scale. So how many board members feel that the requested modifications do not add to the proposed mass bulk and scale?
Do not add to it?
Correct.
Or do not adversely impact?
What they said, the ABR is to comment on the requested modifications' aesthetic impact on the proposed mass, bulk, and scale of the building related to neighborhood compatibility.
I think
So
that the way
are they
Keith-
adding mass or not? And is it adverse or not?
Technically, they are adding mass, but are they adverse? I think that's where Keith just said that the majority of the board does not feel that they are adverse. Go ahead, Keith.
We may modify that. Not only
Does it, as I said before, does not have an aesthetic impact. It does not adversely add to the project's mass, bulk, or scale.
That sounds good to me. Does that sound good to you?
And how do they relate to neighborhood compatibility? That's the other direction that they were requesting from this board. I know I had to throw a monkey wrench in there.
How do the mods relate to neighborhood compatibility? We don't know if other projects have had modifications in the neighborhood.
I would not be able to answer that. That information was not
Neighborhood,
presented.
half the properties down there aren't going to comply with current code anyway, so
Correct.
that's kind of a bogus question.
Most of the encroachments that exist are existing non-conforming encroachments. There was only one modification
Okay.
granted down there, and it was for an addition to a garage.
What the PC was looking for, they were concerned that the mods would make the project appear much larger aesthetically. So I think you've addressed it.
Go ahead, Keith.
Just if we could just add a couple of words then to what I've already added about the neighborhood compatibility. I'm sorry, what was the last item?
Sorry.
Oh, actually, it was
Neighborhood
also
You were talking directly about neighborhood character, correct?
It's about the requested modifications and their impact on the neighborhood compatibility. I mean,
so it did not have an
Adverse impact on the project's mass, bulk, and scale, or compatibility with the neighborhood.
Do you understand that? Who made this? Who seconded?
This was for a straw vote, isn't this? No.
No,
This
it was.
isn't-
We were
this is
adding
a
that.
Motion under discussion, I'm adding that to it.
Who made the motion? It was so long ago.
You did.
No, we don't have a maker then because I cannot make the motion. Who made that motion? Somebody made it. Clay made the motion, and Keith added to it. And does that second item on the motion sufficiently address Planning Commission's?
I believe so. The only other direction they had was to appoint a ABR representative to be present when it returns to PC. But that doesn't need to be included in the motion.
Okay, let's not include that in the motion right now.
Can I, Don, one other item, just so that the applicant doesn't get locked into a certain specific size for the spider leg in the PC requirement, because it was mentioned by Chris, and I agree, I didn't comment on it, on the size, and thinking it's going to have to be a moment frame, maybe not, but 6 by 6, 8 by 8, I kind of want to say the spider leg is there, and the actual proportions or the final size of the spider leg is based upon, will be evaluated at the next level, so that he doesn't get locked into a certain dimension, if that's convenient.
Do you have a size on the plans right now? Then you're not getting locked in.
Specifically, but
Well, I just want to make sure that he doesn't. Okay, never mind.
Did you think he was going to get locked in because he answered the question as 6 by something?
6 by 6
And there's nothing on the plans that says it, so I think that they get it. So I think that's good. And you understand that that's going to come back when you get it.
absolutely.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Well, anything else? I'm struggling with Keith's revision of the Suzanne's question about are the modifications compatible with the neighborhood? And in my way of looking at it, in just for me, the wording would be more suitable is to say the modifications are acceptable or appropriate for this project, but it's not necessarily compatible with the neighborhood. Because I don't know if they're compatible with the neighborhood. I can't make that statement. That information was not presented. So I can't agree to how that was worded because modifications do start a precedent. And compatible with the neighborhood, I don't know.
Because we added that in, didn't we, just to kind of move the meeting forward. But that was my first concern, and how do we answer that question when we don't know the history of the neighborhood?
I would hope after 6 reviews of the project that somebody has drove by the neighborhood and looked at pictures, but you look at the pattern of the development and how things sit to the street and how they relate to property lines on the site plan and adjacent property footprints. I can tell you in the PC staff report we did do a table, and there was various encroachments into setbacks, all legally existing nonconforming, with the exception of one modification that I found granted on this particular street for enlargement of a garage in an interior setback that was 1 foot from the property line.
Madam Chair, the motion as it stands.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that it's difficult to make that. I agree with you, Carol. But also what I'm hearing from staff is that there are various other modifications that are in other projects that are at least as encroaching as this one is, if not more encroaching. So we wouldn't be setting a precedence for other projects' modifications. Is that what you're asking us to?
The Planning Commission asked, basically when they saw this, they thought that there was some struggle with the mass bulk and scale, and they wanted your direction as the Design Review Board that makes findings on neighborhood compatibility to weigh in, do these modifications add to the mass, and can the neighborhood compatibility findings be made for this project?
So I think that most of us are comfortable, except for Carol. I'm trying to get a vote that includes Carol's vote. Okay. Okay. That's what I tried to do a few minutes ago. And Carol wanted to make a comment, so. Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Carol and Gary.
And I'd like to state that I'm opposed because of architectural neighborhood compatibility and neighborhood friendliness.
And it might be beneficial to state that the reason Carol is opposing...
No, I could speak.
Okay.
I'd like to ditto Gary's comment and to add that information was not presented to make the findings that the modification doesn't have a
Okay. Thank you. Motion passes. And you're on your way to Planning Commission. Okay, item number 4, 421 North Milpas Street.
Would you prefer?
Sure.
Is this you?
You already said that, and I understand that, but I thought you, and this understood. I didn't know you were opposed to the neighborhood compatibility. I'm going to set it.
Good to see you. I'll be back. Sorry. Didn't know that was going to happen.
Okay. All right. Your name for the record?
My name is Brett Jewett.
Go ahead, Brett.
Okay. What we have here is a project that is basically a simple facade enhancement. And when we took a look at the existing building, our instinct was to reconstruct some of the elements that are existing to arrive at more familiar proportions and details. But, you know, the building's not in the El Pueblo Viejo district, and it became apparent that there was an opportunity as well as a requirement, an economic requirement, to reuse the existing forms. We took the approach to accept the forms, and in the same way that...
Can you go through, Britt, the photos of the existing building so that we kind of just know what we're dealing with here?
Sure, sorry. The building's a corner building on the corner of Milpas and Reddick Avenues. As you can see, there's an existing house at the rear of the property. This is a corner location. There's mature landscaping.
This is the building itself?
That's correct. There's
okay.
Mature landscaping that limits the view of some of the background elements of the building. The principal portion of the building that's visible from the public way is the corner. These are shots from the rear of the building. And here's a facade that illustrates some of the proportions that upon first glance, the instinct was that they didn't represent the kind of approach that we would start from scratch to achieve.
Okay. All right.
So with that said, we took the existing character of the building and sought to make it an opportunity. Where's this, the photographs, the photographic page? It's not even right.
No, they're all bad.
So, you know, part of what we like about the mission is that the orders, the ionic orders, are misinterpreted. They're examples of something that was done in a vernacular approach that's untrained, but in that it gives it a particular intrinsic character that's appealing. As we looked at that approach and how it was applied in other buildings around town, on Canon Perdido Street, there's a couple blocks wherein Frank Robinson did an Adobe with this more raw character, and a residential unit where, again, we see proportions that don't come from a textbook examples but are combined in a way that has an element of authenticity to it. So it's an architectural approach that's similar to what happens with outsider art, where the untrained eye creates things that have an interest. This is an example of a grill that's at the courthouse, and the courthouse being another example wherein the vernacular elements that were taken from rural Spain came together much more in the civic or heroic examples to create a revivalist style. This building doesn't carry quite the importance of something like that, but what it did was it defined an approach to dealing with the changes to the building and gave us a point of departure for the aesthetic character. So what we did was we replaced existing windows along Milpa Street, developed ironwork and a screen element. We kept the balconies above, the overhanging balcony with the plaster cover to the outriggers, and added awnings. As you turn the corner, we have a custom designed light fixture. There'll be an address and signage located in this position, a simple door with a rather organic arch to it, and again, gates and hinges, downspouts and water collectors that all carry the more simplistic approach to the architectural character. The elements that appeared on this grill were instead of following a dimensional bar stock that was hammered to scrolls that adhered to particular proportions and things. This is a flat ironwork that's twisted as it goes around the corner to create the turns in it. Was used as we developed the character-giving additions to the building. This is the awning bracket here. This is a simple grill made of pavers set on edge with a tile in the middle. And as you get to the grills, which really is what are the principal changes along the pedestrian zone of Milpa Street, you see that we've incorporated variations of the courthouse example. This one has a cup that's round, it has a little a bouquet on it. This one has a little crown, and this one just has a spade. And then here's a wrought iron fixture where it's faceted. It has a couple layers of ironwork that are cut simply, and will have a very hand manufactured character to it. So that's in principle what the design approach is. The interior of the building gets some changes to accommodate the change of use to an office use, and we're grandfathered in for no additional parking and so forth. The colors, again, follow very simplistic expression of things that we've seen a lot of. There's a white plaster that matches the existing building. This is wrought iron and windows. There are existing metal windows. The awning color follows suit with a very neutral earth tone, and then picking up on the colors that we saw on Canon Perdido, we chose to use a darker stain to offset the wood from the plaster and metal.
And there's new landscaping?
That's correct. The landscape sheet. Trying to keep things very simplistic with the landscape approach. There are a couple of courtyards in the back that receive special treatment, but along the public way, there's just this inset from the sidewalk that gets a couple of drought tolerant or indigenous type plantings, and that's in principle all you'll see from the public way.
All right. Do we have any public comment on this, Michelle?
One letter of opposition from Ms. Paula Westbury.
All right. Thank you. Questions from the board?
I
Keith?
just
have a question about potential encroachment issues with the ironwork along the Milpas Street sidewalk, because it appears the building's right on the property line. Are there any issues with how far that's projecting out?
We're holding the ironwork close to the building so that it doesn't really want to move further into the public way than the windowsills and things. We're holding them real tight to the plaster.
How far, the building is on the property line?
Yeah.
And how far does the wrought iron project beyond?
Tracy?
No, it's on the detail there.
Yeah, potential ADA issues, I think is what he's talking about.
Right.
It's 4 inches.
4 inches. I think that's that might be an ADA issue. Below 6'8".
That's it? It's been deeded?
Oh, well, I was conveyed to the city for use by sidewalk, but it was part of the property. And actually, the balconies extend beyond already.
But they're over the...
Their balcony, the existing balconies are above the 6'8" dimension, and you're eliminating that door and putting a window and making these windows smaller, or putting 2 windows in place of it that are smaller.
That's correct, yes.
And this balcony is recessed. So what Keith's talking about are the wrought iron that's projecting 4
Forward.
inches out on the lower portion. But you might have an issue with that.
We'll have to check that because the property that is the sidewalk now was conveyed to the city for public use, and so there's some discrepancy as to what rights we may have to project these or not.
Okay, that'll probably be a part of the motion, but just something to be aware of. More questions?
I did have a question. The entryway that is facing State Street, or the entryways that are facing State Street?
You mean Milpas?
Sorry, Milpas Street, thanks. Milpas Street, they're going to be completely eliminated on both A and B buildings?
That's correct. This is an office use, and so the idea that the doors are appropriate to Milpas Street is less so if it were retail. So we chose to bring the door around the corner to put it under the cover of the projecting balcony. And as you can see from the site photos, the principal exposure to the building is from the corner.
All right. Questions? Clay? No questions? Okay. Comments? Go ahead.
I guess I have a real issue from an urban design standpoint of, this design takes storefronts that provide some pedestrian interest along Milpas and literally turns its back on the street and boards those up. So I question the compatibility of that with our urban design guidelines. So I realize it's an office use, but I still think it needs to have a more pedestrian oriented experience right on Milpas Street there. So I guess I have a real issue with the kind of fundamental design layout. That's it.
All right. Gary?
I do like the ironwork. I think it's very handsome, and I do like the design. But I'm with Keith that I think that we seem to be turning a back or a shoulder to Milpas Street, and we're kind of losing that interest at Milpas Street. And I, in some ways, would like it to see address the street.
Clay?
Madam Chair, I think that the project looks really nice. I think the drawings are great and the details are nice. But I'm also in the same camp. I know this project, I drive by this building every day, and I think it's unfortunate that we're really taking away the pedestrian experience. And I don't know that necessarily the door has to be there. It could be just larger windows or something like that, but for me, it's your renderings are charming, and then the building, just kind of turns its back. And then the address of the property is on Milpas, but you approach it and arrive at Reddick, and I think that's just don't know. I'm struggling with it. I think the design's great, but I'm just struggling with the choice to orient the building and the plan the way you've done it, that would take away any sort of access or storefront visibility or anything like that along Milpas.
Okay. Carol?
So in listening to everybody's comments about that Milpa Street frontage, let me see if I understand. So they're removing one door and they're replacing it with a smaller window, basically. Is that correct?
They're removing two doors, actually,
Two
and
doors.
replacing one very large window with a smaller window and adding 3 small windows.
They're reducing the size of the
They're reducing
windows.
the overall fenestration and eliminating 2 doors.
Right. Okay. Well, in thinking about the change of use, I could see that they want a little bit more like security from Milpas, but I do also see that there might be some architectural advantages to making really big windows that Milpas could kind of peek in, so there's a relationship going on. It's not so much blocking and separating from Milpas. So I do see that there might be some movement that, the two of you could come up with a solution. I just want to add that I just want to make one very small landscape comment, is that there are 2 pepper trees proposed on the property, and what I'd like to see is just an alternative choice, because peppers are so messy, and I just don't think this is going to be appropriate or a good choice. And since there's so many other things that could be put in those places, that I'd like your landscape architect to at least consider a different choice than the pepper tree.
Chris?
Yeah, just to continue with Carol's comment, I am with her on the peppers. I think they're also planted right on the property line for the most part, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so they will encroach on the neighbor, and feasibly you could cut half the tree off and they would be able to do so legally. And beyond that, I don't have any additional comments other than I agree with the board as far as the building sort of turning its back on Milpas.
All right. I agree. I think it's a really nice project, and that's my only caveat, is that in some way something needs to come in, either larger windows or a door, so a small door or a French door or one or the other or both. Just play with it, Brett, and figure out some way to engage the public along Milpas just a little bit more than it does right now.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there was one additional thing, and that is the door that is on Reddick Street is sort of right in front of where that existing Hollywood juniper is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's almost hidden back in there, too. And I think depending on the angle you're looking at it from, it's, you walk out.
They're
you see
eliminating that door. They're putting a door in, but the door is not going to go where the juniper is. The juniper's right here.
It's forward of the juniper.
It's forward of the juniper. It's right about here, Chris. But do you still think that you're saying that that's too close?
Well, there's another picture that I saw where it was pretty much just about right in the middle of that. I don't know that matters necessarily, but it's just something to be aware of. Where's this picture
But
that I
it's
was looking at here?
not even on the corner. It's way back.
That picture.
Oh, yeah, I can see what you're saying there. You put in the door underneath here.
That's correct.
Right in there. So, and what was your comment about that?
I guess I just wanted to comment on it, just so that everybody's aware that the door is just beyond the tree.
Okay.
And do what you will with it.
All right. We can take action on this agenda item if we feel appropriate, or we can continue it I'm hearing that we're not quite ready to give it a preliminary approval because of just because of the pedestrian-friendly issue. Other than that, I think you're ready to move forward. So,
Is there a directive that you could give us? This is a part of a three-way property exchange, and we're trying to get as far along in the process as possible. We did a full set of working drawings. We have structural drawings. If the board was to direct a particular opening that you'd like to see a door and we could take action, that would be appreciated.
I think that I'm speaking for the board, and that maybe I shouldn't get myself in trouble when I do that. But I think that we would be hesitant to tell you what to do because so much thought has been put into every little detail that you've done. So I think we'd be afraid to, I think it doesn't need, to direct. I think it doesn't, we're not asking to put large windows across the whole face or put a lot of doors. But if you'd like to make a suggestion that
Let this just go into a door here, because this window here is,
that's what I was
in
going to say.
essence similar to the other one. So if we ended up with a door here, you'd still have an element that addresses the Milpas Street frontage.
So let me ask the board this question. Does the board feel that that would be a sufficient solution to providing an adequate pedestrian friendliness to the Milpas elevation? Just 3 feet?
Ooh, I think that's
Oh,
We need
okay.
to look at the urban design guidelines about creating pedestrian-friendly facades. I think just, it still
But
turns...
this building is not a retail building, it's an office, and so we're putting doors into a cubic, or a
You don't have to have
workspace.
doors, I'm saying it's turning its back, its fenestration is turning its back to the street and the public. I think you're taking away from the streetscape.
Doesn't need to be retail. It's still a heavily trafficked sidewalk.
Okay. So, Britt, I think you're just going to have to come back one more time, even though you're so close. It's just that one issue that the board's having a hard time giving you. That would have been my solution, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be enough for the rest of the board. So, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll try. I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, could this come back on consent?
I don't know. How does the rest of the board feel about this coming back on consent? Who's on consent right now?
I would be Clay.
Clay.
So.
Well, I think the precedent
Previously has been not to come back on consent unless we have a basic design that we agree on.
Okay, so motion is for the project to come back to full board indefinitely.
2 weeks?
Oh, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
We can get you on the next agenda, Brett.
With a revised Milpas Street elevation showing, how do you want to phrase that? Showing...
Addressing
the urban guideline requirements for guidelines requiring, how do you want to phrase it? Doors?
A pedestrian-friendly facade.
Pedestrian-friendly
Milpas
facade.
Street.
Okay, on the Milpas Street elevation. And then a separate sentence is the rest of the project has been received with positive comments.
All right.
Oh, and the last comment is for the landscape architect to restudy the use of the pepper tree.
Do I have a seconder of the motion? Clay, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good. Actually, that wasn't really...
Thank you.